What's good? It's the David the Dog Trainer podcast 12. 1, 2. Almost at 13. An unlucky number.
Oh, boy.
It's a random one. Just got back last night at 9:30 p.m. from vacation.
Dang.
Didn't prep for this. We're going to talk about some stuff. I just posted about 3 minutes ago. I said, hey, looking for some topics. Hit me with some topics on the gram. So we'll see what we get.
Yeah, hopefully somebody bites on the bait, huh?
Yeah, so now I got a couple in here that we can talk about, but, if we get some more, that'd be nice.
That would be.
Josh, what's new? You get some ice cubes there?
Yeah, I got some ice. I need some ice water today. Feeling a little warm. No, man, this weekend was awful.
It was awful.
Let me tell you.
Tell me.
So Thursday, my girlfriend, she comes home. I think she has food poisoning.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's not good.
No.
I was like, well, I'll take care of you. Took a drink out of something she had, thinking it was just food poisoning. It was not. Friday.
Was it?
Oh, it was like a 24-hour bug.
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah. Let me just say, Friday and Saturday, I have cleansed my body, and by Sunday, I was a new man.
Hey, listen, those are the times they say you drop out like 10 pounds. The weight loss journey is a part of it.
Yeah, it's not the way I would have done it, wanted to do it, but man, it definitely cleansed my body of all the toxins, let's say that. And yeah, and then right after that, I had to go straight down to Columbus for 3 days.
What a great time to get sick.
Yeah.
During coronavirus and everything.
Yeah.
And then 2, just with everything going on. Yeah, you got places to be. You had to get out of town and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I was on the brink of just saying, hey, I'm not going to be able to do this. And then it was like 1 o'clock. I took some Tylenol and I was like, good. I ate the first little bit of solid food in the first time in 3 days. And I said, let's do it. So
yeah, I
went down and filmed a Starbucks rebuild in the course of 3 days. Yeah. And got some Red Door barbecue.
Oh, I'm so jealous of that.
Dude, I had to send you a picture.
I know. I was jealous. I saw it come through and I was like, I know what this is already. That's cool. I didn't know you were going to Columbus. Have you ever gotten mono before?
Mm-hmm.
Oof. I remember one time, this was probably like 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. I remember getting mono and it being the most just debilitatingly sick feeling I ever had in my life.
Yeah.
Like I was out for I think it was like 3 weeks. I think I was off work for like 2.5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And just couldn't even move. I had to go to the the emergency minute clinic a couple of times. One of the times they had to literally inject steroids into my neck because my throat was swelling closed. I couldn't even breathe or anything.
Yeah, dude, it's terrible.
Yeah, couldn't eat anything. I legitimately just shedding pounds by the second. It felt like.
Yeah, I don't know. Being sick is the worst because it's I have things to do.
Yeah, that's the worst part about it is how unproductive you are for that. But it's been a long time since I've been really, really sick.
Yeah.
So that's got to be awful.
Yeah, dude. Especially I hate throwing up. I'm just going to say it. I hate throwing up.
I'm such a bitch about it, too.
Yeah. I'll sit there and wait.
Screaming, ah!
Yeah. And of course, Devin, she was just hers was one night. It was Thursday night, Friday, and then she was just fine, just walking around.
Josh, can you quit being a pussy?
Yeah. I'm like, God, why am I such a bitch?
Yeah, dude, when I'm sick, I'm the same deal. I want to just be taken care of, and I want to be a drama queen about it. And it's not great.
No, it's not great. I hate it, dude. I hate it. But otherwise, everything else was great.
Well, that's fun. So it's just a random build in Columbus. Was this the same one? You were talking about this guy before. Didn't he have you do something else? Or he's the guy that did the
rally.
The rally also.
Yeah.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
Good additional connections.
Yeah, so it was really good. I mean, he wants to do even more after this, so I guess he secured 6 or 7 more contracts after this. So
yeah,
I mean, he doesn't want me to come to every one, but it's we're trying to get as much as possible, like I said, for his website and stuff. So it's going to be a next 2 or 3 month kind of project for me to kind of work with him. So
yeah,
that's good. And then I got a lot of good news actually for like restaurants and stuff. I feel like a lot of people are opening back up now that springtime's coming around. It's like, there's kind of light at the end of the tunnel for people. Aaliyah, they just announced they're going to be opening again. So I think I'm going to contact them this week and be like, hey, you guys have a new menu. Like, I'll just pro bono you. I want to work with you again. I want you to get your doors open. So I think I'm going to do like a little free shoot for them, just kind of like a welcome back kind of thing, because they were always good clients before everything shut down. So
have you thought about doing? I look at situations like this and I take things to quasi the extreme sometimes and trying to find a balance here right now. Like, what if you did like a first 10 new businesses that reach out to me, share this around, first 10 people to reach out to me will get a free mini shoot of their like specifically for restaurants and bars and stuff that are reopening right now or something. Yeah. Because that's something I think that can gain some serious traction of getting shared around like crazy and helping to draw attention to you. Yeah. And then also just like it's giving back to businesses that have been like really struggling. Yeah.
Yeah. I would definitely 100% be down for that.
I think something like that would be really cool.
Yeah. Also, what's that place over by the Rock Hall? The Nuevo?
Oh, the place behind it?
Yeah, that's like on the pier. Cool. Yeah, they hit me up.
Did they?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, they're doing a new menu next month, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah,
I haven't been there in a while, but man, it was banging last time I went.
I've never eaten there before, but I used to ride my bike down the Lakeshore Trail or whatever, and it takes you back around by where that Cleveland sign is behind the Rock Hall, where it is.
Yeah,
and it looked really fun.
Yeah, it's like a really nice building. Like, talk about a fucking location, though.
Yeah.
Right on the lake, and like they have all those like windows and stuff. It probably looks great. Like at night when you eat there, see the city lit up and everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I'm excited for that. I feel like that one's gonna get a lot of traction. Yeah. Although the Cloak and Dagger menu I just did, man, it
came really cool.
Yeah, it's coming out great.
What's this? You posted? You got some new product or something you were using to shoot their stuff? What was that?
Oh yeah, it's V Flat World. They usually make like light modifiers, like walls and stuff, bounce light and stuff. But they started making these fake like vinyl tops, and they go from like wood to granite. They have a couple like coarse like concrete looks. But it's just
simulates a flat surface.
It's just like this fake board that I just put down, and I don't know, like the resolution, the quality of it's so great that like it looks like it's real.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I just used it, and it has like two sides. And I was like, do you want hot or do you want cold? And he was like, I like that blue. So we went with the darker, the darker tone wood. And it came out really good, so
yeah.
It just gives like another like dimension, especially they have older tables there, like they didn't get.
Well, they're going for that kind of look.
Yeah, but it was just like
Victorian look.
Yeah, it just gave it like a different feel from like the photos we did last time. So
yeah,
and I got to do their cocktail menu in the next couple weeks.
How often are they changing the cocktail? Are they changing the cocktail menu pretty frequently too?
Not as much. They're trying to do that more like as the seasons change. So this one will probably be like a spring, summer. So they probably won't change it again until fall.
Yeah.
I think they're only trying to do like 2 a year.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the cocktails you can keep pretty consistent. I mean, I know that, just from the handful of times we went, and Kurt, my brother-in-law, he goes there semi-regularly, and he's got like these, like 2 of them on the menu that he just like gets all the time.
Oh yeah,
he's obsessed with them. Same with food. I guess you don't really need to change it that often, but
no,
I do like when restaurants change up things pretty frequently like that.
Yeah, he's going to change up the food again in the summer. Like he's already said that he's going to. So it's going to be like maybe like 3 months on the current menu. I think he's just going to do that probably like 3 to 4 month intervals.
Yeah,
so,
I think those are really cool signs of a very artistic chef, like I remember the Pompadour, they were telling me that like, they changed that menu fairly frequently, because he likes to create new things and, evolving and evolution with it and stuff like that. And that's why there's so many people that are such diehard fans of these places, is because they could go there and get something different every time. It's like a band putting out a new album. It's like, I love listening to the hits, but I want something new every now and then.
Yeah. Well, especially like someone like the Pompadour, like that higher like quality of food. I mean, I think it definitely. Well, Rusty's such an artistic person, so he was a painter. He was an actual artist before he started doing food.
Yeah,
and then he was just like, it just made sense. So that's why his food looks so beautiful, But,
yeah, for sure.
But I think he finds that fun and that challenge of taking local stuff that isn't available all the time and creating like a limited menu frequently.
Yeah.
It's just more of like a challenge and like a satisfaction for him than regularly just putting out the same stuff every day.
We've talked about this before, but like there's just something about like the whole experience and like that artistic approach to everything past just the actual food, right? The food can be delicious, but it's the whole experience. Like we just got back from Joshua Tree in Palm Springs, and not last night, the night before, what was that, Tuesday night, we went out to dinner at this place called Sandfish. And Sandfish is a high-end sushi restaurant in Palm Springs, right?
All right.
So, and I didn't even realize this until we got there and they started telling us, but the owner of Sandfish, the head chef and the owner, he is one of currently the top 30 sushi chefs in the world right now.
Wow.
Like,
okay.
It's nice, right? Yeah. It's really nice, right? And we got the like the chef's tasting menu or whatever, which was, I think, 9 courses, I believe.
Ooh, that's a lot.
All super, super small stuff. You know what I mean? Like it was like course 1 was like this little kind of like salad mix. Then course 2 was these like cut up scallops on 2 little like oyster shell. You know what I mean? Like it's like bite-sized stuff, right? Yeah. But it was unbelievable, just the presentation of each dish, how unbelievable the flavors were and things. Like they had this one, it was like a little cracker, right? That had this like schmear on it and like a couple other little things and stuff. It literally was 2 bites, right? Yeah. But the flavors coming out of it were just unbelievable. The presentation and the look of it, like how much attention went into those 2 bites.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And we're talking about it. It's like, at this point, like, if you're going out to a restaurant and you're spending any amount of good money on a meal, that's kind of what I expect out of that, right? Yeah. Like I expect so much attention to detail and quality and, being able to really sit there for an extended period of time and enjoy ourselves and leave there just feeling like, wow, what an experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was really cool.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to small bites like that and really, really high class, I mean, you just feel the passion just like bleeding out of each dish.
Of course.
Like that's why, even though it's these small little bites, like I don't care. Like I wish I could have more bites, but it's like, it makes it much more of a like intimate like experience. I think that you're getting this just like little morsel of like basically the chef's like
totally like
heart and passion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really cool. Like you said, like those tasting little chef like courses. Yeah. It's just like
they know how they want it to be presented.
Exactly.
Also. It's not like I'm going through and like, give me this appetizer and this entree and this and this.
Yeah.
It's you could tell like this is the way they want you to eat all of this.
Yeah.
Right. Which is just sweet.
Yeah. So yeah, what else did you do out there, man? Come on.
It was pretty sweet. So we stayed for 3 nights in Joshua Tree.
Yeah.
In the national park. We went out there specifically for the engagement photos that we were having done by Drozdick Photography, which, oh my God, just literally knocked it out of the park. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm excited to see them.
First off, it was just like such a great experience working with them. They were so cool. It's kind of a husband and wife situation. Yeah. And it's actually funny. The husband used to be in like hardcore bands back in the day and stuff.
Oh, perfect.
And, the wife was actually used to be a nurse as well.
Oh.
So it was like a carbon copy of like Kate and I.
Yeah, felt like. Yeah, definitely.
So it was super cool. They They currently are doing like a little bit of like a traveling trip where they're going to different national parks out west, and they're doing photo shoots at each one of them and kind of theming them after those national parks, which is so cool.
That's tight.
So, Joshua Tree, it's a big national park. They got a bunch of different types of scenery and locations and stuff like that. So we did, the night we got out there, we did a shoot and did, I think, 3 different spots throughout the park that night. The following morning, we did a sunrise. So we did sunset, sunrise, and same deal, did about 3 different spots throughout the park. And we wound up that first night we got out there, like hanging out with them for a little bit. And we hung out at this like pizza shop for a little bit, and next morning, same deal and stuff. So it was just a great experience working with them. We went out with Brittany and Sean, and designated some time to hiking and just exploring and stuff. And there's this restaurant out there called Pappy and Harriet's, dude. So good stuff. We talked about this. John Lennon. What's his face played there before? Okay. Yeah. Or not John Lennon. Which one was it? Paul McCartney. That's it.
Paul McCartney.
So we ate there twice. And then we spent the last night in Palm Springs. Our flight actually got changed on us. So they gave us an extra night out there for free, which was pretty sweet. So it was good. It was relaxing.
Where are those photographers? Where are they based from?
Cleveland.
They're from Cleveland?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they live out in Lyndhurst. They actually, it's funny, they live a block away from where I used to live. It's just ridiculous.
Wow.
Booking it and everything.
Small world, huh?
Yeah. So we did that. So it was pretty sweet. So it was a good trip. Glad to be back. I feel like we got back last night, and I feel like both of us were like laying in bed like, holy shit, we have so much stuff to do this week.
Yeah. The only problem with vacations. Yeah.
Oh, my God. So a lot of stuff to do. It's going to be a busy day, busy week.
Yeah, you got to go. You probably got to go straight to the shop after this, huh?
Yeah, I actually have to go pick up Kate's car from the body shop now. So we got all sorts of car things. We've been getting everything done with them. So
that's good.
So that's about it. So anything else new to report?
Nothing as fun as that.
All right, guys. Well, we got random podcasts today. We're going to be jumping into lots of different topics today. I got a couple topics to discuss. I got a couple questions to answer. So we're going to start burning through these. So I have a question from... This was actually given February 23rd. So we missed this one. This one was asked while Tim was on the podcast. We didn't get around to getting it. So we're going to burn into it here.
That was a rough time. So forgive us.
All right. This question is from Alyssa Schutzer. Schutzer? The question is, household dogs with human resource guarding issues and tiny humans. You've mentioned before there's no reason for dogs to have access to newborns, which seems completely reasonable. But how do you prevent your dog from developing guarding with, say, your own young children who at some point are crawling and walking anywhere? I guess my question is, how do you begin to enforce boundaries to protect both dogs and tiny human? So I'm not entirely sure if this is being asked from the context of how do you stop the dog from guarding the children specifically or guarding things from the children. So I will try my best to answer it both ways here. So resource guarding in general, obviously, if you break it down at its core, it's a dog feels possessive over something of high value to them. So a lot of times we'll see this over toys, we'll see this over food, we'll see this over affection and people. And a lot of times that comes from those people being too soft to the dog and providing too much with nothing in return, right? So the dog winds up then seeing that person as simply a resource, right? It's something that provides fun things to them. So they want to defend that or protect that against other people, other dogs, anything they may perceive as a threat, right? So in the context of, I would say what most people get concerned about with children is not necessarily that the dog will be guarding things towards the children. The biggest issue that I see is that the people think that the dog is going to guard the children themselves, right? And a lot of times that comes from providing the child and having it be this kind of come up and sniff it and say hi and lay next to the crib and do all these different types of things where the dog starts to feel like that resource is something that they possess and are more likely to guard it, right? So that's why I'm so strict initially on the idea that they should have minimal access to that child initially, because we want to set that tone right away that the child is mine, not yours, right? And especially if we have a dog that has a history of guarding issues, they can quickly develop those tendencies towards people or towards dogs. So, all of this stuff, any of my answers I typically will give people are under the expectation that the dog has some degree of training already, right? Because if you don't have training, you can't really communicate anything very effectively, because we do use a lot of management techniques, like say down stays or bed stays, which are things that the dogs should need to know how to do. We need to have the training established in order to get them to do those things, right? So I can, if I take a dog that's untrained and the dog is having resource guarding issues and I say, hey, have the dog hold a 30-minute bed stay every day, then it's like, okay, cool. How do I get my dog to do that? Right. So you have to get the dog trained first and foremost. And, typically the training in itself helps to alleviate 90% of the problem once you do it properly, obviously, because you get your dog into a more compliant state of mind. You get them to a point where you could start to ask things out of them when they're in these types of states of mind and hold them accountable for those things. You could discipline them for things, et cetera, right? So first step, obviously make sure you have your dog trained. Second step, immediately upon bringing the baby into the home, you want to make sure that you're having the dog hold lots of bed stays, lots of down stays. You're making sure that you're implementing procedures where you're not even really allowing the dog to come up and sniff. You're creating clear boundaries for if you're sitting on the couch feeding the baby or hanging out with the baby or whatever it may be, the dog needs to be keeping a perimeter away from you, et cetera. Just make sure you're keeping in mind that we don't want contact right now, right? And you're going to do that until your dog stops feeling so much like... until they stop feeling so much like they have to be like on guard all the time around the child, right? Or they seem a little bit less interested, or they seem like they've hit the point where they're like, okay, cool, mom and dad aren't going to let me get close to this thing right now, right? From there, little by little, you start allowing privileges and you start allowing them to develop a relationship as one, the child is old enough to understand some boundaries themselves, and two, the dog is compliant enough in the presence around the child where you can clearly manage things as they pop up. Right now, all of this is under the assumption that the dog doesn't have any issues with people, right? Because if that's the case, you got a whole other slew of things that you want to work through in the meantime to make sure that when you go to start that introduction process, you're not going to have any big issues with it, right? Okay, so next question then is under the assumption that the dog is resource guarding things to your children, right? So your dog has a toy, a bone, whatever it may be, and as your child is walking around, the dog starts to guard those things in the presence of the child, right? So this one is obviously a little bit more serious and something you want to take more strictly. First step remains the same as the first side of the equation, right? No contact, making sure your dog is becoming neutralized to just having the child around, period, right? Because a lot of these guarding tendencies and stuff come from the dog being unsure of the person, the dog, whatever it may be, right? So you want to make sure that you're working through that. You want to make sure that you're doing all of your training related things, all of your maintenance related things. From there, you want to make sure that you're eliminating the resources first of all, right? So we're making sure food, toys, affection, none of it is laying around. You're still making sure the dog has minimal free time around the child. You're making sure that you're implementing a muzzle anytime the dog is out around the child if you're really that concerned that there's going to be a bite. But a lot of the resource guarding issues come from mutual respect, right? So that means that I'm not going to allow contact until the child can understand those boundaries with the dog still. That means that I need to make sure that the child understands they need to keep a perimeter around Fido or whoever it may be. We need to make sure that the dog is also keeping a perimeter around the child and they're learning to respect each other's space. Little by little, as trust starts to be developed, you start implementing the resources back into the mix. That means, if you've been feeding separate for the first 2 years of the child's life or year of the child's life or whatever it may be, that means that you little by little start allowing the dog to be fed, maybe not in the crate, but even then making sure the child is not in the space. And you just manage the situation as you need to, right? There's no magic solution to this kind of stuff. It just comes from being overly proactive about things, right? And that's actually like wrapping this into both of them together. Dogs and children, resource guarding issues, any of that kind of stuff. As long as you are always being overly proactive as opposed to giving too much trust to the dog too soon, 9 out of 10 times you're not going to see a lot of issues. A lot of people just go into these situations just like, fingers crossed, I'm not going to do anything, but I'm just going to hope that it goes well, right? Or fingers crossed, I'm just going to allow them to kind of figure it out with each other when it comes to the dogs and the children or the guests and the dog or whatever it may be. And they run into issues because they're just setting themselves up for failure. They're not doing anything to mitigate the situation. Where to this day, if I have guests come over my house or if I have one of my dogs and I take them to my parents' house while there's going to be young children there or something because my mom runs a child daycare service out of her house, I am always going the absolute extreme end of the spectrum where even though my dogs are great with children, I'm making sure that I'm making them hold down stays for the first, half hour that they're there. I'm making sure if the kids want to come over and pet the dog that I'm putting structure to it and I'm managing how it's being done. And I'm making sure that I'm ready to correct my dogs if they were to say jump or paw or do anything like that. And I'm always being prepared for these things so that I don't run into issues because of it. So that's the key with this is don't ever get too comfortable too quick, right? Like, bringing a baby into the house or a child or whatever it may be, when you have a dog, like that's a huge undertaking and that's something you have to take seriously no matter how good your dog is. And you have to understand that the dog's life is going to be changing for a long time as you introduce this child into your home, right? That doesn't just mean the first month, which I feel like a lot of people look so short term with this stuff. Yeah. That may mean the first 2 years until the dog is walking and talking. Your dog's routines are changing, right? Mm-hmm. And you got to be okay with that, and you got to be prepared to accept that, because I think that's why a lot of people will get rid of dogs when they have children, or they try to, a month before they have the child, ship their dog off to a board and train or something, because they don't do the pre-planning and understanding how big of a deal some of this stuff is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like sometimes people, for lack of a better word, maybe even force the interactions sometimes?
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, come here, come here, Fido," like, and try to force this interaction.
I think that comes from, like we were just talking, I think it comes from people wanting this to be a short-term game.
Yeah.
Right? No different than, it's funny. We were talking with Michelle last podcast about how it gets so easy to get like jaded and like judgmental towards like clients and stuff like that, or towards like behavioral issues. And here's the thing, every single dog trainer in the history of dog trainers is guilty of this, right? But so when I was in Joshua Tree, I saw a interaction going down in one of the stores where some lady had this like shepherd husky mix thing, right? Okay. And this guy had this like little wiener dog, right? And I just saw, the guy was like wanting to like get his little wiener dog to like meet this dog, right? And you could tell the dog wanted nothing to do with it. Every time he would get close, the dog would like hide between his legs, and it got as far as like, as opposed to looking at that situation and first off being like, okay, cool, let's just not do the on-leash greetings, right? Yeah, because it's just not a good idea. But whatever, people that are say uneducated to why that's important, right? You see something like that, and why can't we just look at it and say, this dog clearly doesn't want to interact with this dog right now. Yeah. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He wasn't aggressing or growling or doing anything. He's just like, nah, I'm going to go the other way, right? I don't want to meet this dog right now. But instead of just looking at that and looking at the obvious of, it's so simple. He doesn't want to meet him. We're just going to go the other way. Yeah. Oh, well, cool. Not a big deal. Nice to meet you. Bye, right? Instead of that, it went as far as this guy got on the ground. He picked up the dog and kept repeatedly setting it like 2 feet closer to this other thing, trying. And every time he did that, the dog just ran right back to him, and he kept trying. And then he tried I'm going to hold you in one spot and then try to get this other dog to sniff my hand and get the dog to come closer to, and it just like, it turned into this production, of just like, this dog, you guys have to like each other right now. Yeah. You have to sniff each other right now. Yeah. Right. And it just turned into that. And it's like, come on, like this is why we have problems. Yeah. Right? Because we can't look at the obvious situation and look at and be empathetic to the fact that like he just doesn't want it right now. Yeah. Right? Exactly. We even see it with treats. I've seen so many times people try to give their dog a treat and say like a lesson or something, and the dog doesn't want the treat. And instead they sit there and they just try to like, come on, you need to want this treat right now. Right? You have to take it right now. Because in my mind, it's going to make you happy if you take this treat. So you have to take it right now. And you have to be happy right now, right? And we just try to force these things on the dog as opposed to just like understand that sometimes dogs get in states of mind. And we're getting on a tangent here right now. This is kind of, I'll divert this back in a minute. But, as opposed to sometimes dogs get in a state of mind where they get overwhelmed by something or they get uncomfortable by something, and they need to just like be able to internalize and process those emotions and figure out exactly what it is that they're feeling and exactly why they're feeling it. And it's our job at that point to let them do it and give them just very clear information to help guide them through the correct choices, right? Because that's the key. The key is not that we don't make the dog scared, or the key is not that the dog has to be happy all the time, or that the dog is never going to experience, sadness or whatever, anything like that. The key is that training allows us to, when the dog feels those emotions that they don't understand, the training allows us to be able to coach them through the appropriate responses to those things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't think people understand / realize that, Yeah. And it's just insane when I see stuff like that. So going back to the dogs and the babies, is we look at this as, I need to socialize my dog, and I need to make sure that over the course of 2 minutes, my dog is good with this thing, right? In our mind, that interaction on the street between the two dogs, this should be a positive. My dog has developed a new relationship with another dog.
Yeah.
We bring the baby into the house. My dog has developed a relationship with the new baby right now.
Yeah.
We have an aggressive dog, and we bring a guest into the house, right? Boom. My dog should be able to socialize and develop a relationship with this person, as opposed to understanding how much time that develops.
Yep.
Or how much time that takes, I should say,
takes,
right? We've talked about this before from the context of us out on the street, the quick interaction at Starbucks of saying hi to some person.
Yep.
Does that mean we're socialized and best friends with that person? No. Versus our coworkers that we've worked with for the last 2 years, that, after a year and a half of working with them, one of them invites you out to go get drinks after, and then you start to develop that relationship, right? It takes time, and it's okay that it takes time for that, right?
Exactly.
And we have to, we love humanizing things with dogs, obviously. We have to understand that you can look at those things kind of humanizing, right? And if you do it, it's going to give you a better understanding of things as a whole, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
I believe that.
So I don't know. That's what I see the most, right? Is, and where your dog starts at just determines how long that process is going to take. It doesn't determine if it's possible or not, because I think any of these dogs can develop a relationship. And here's the thing, in the case of a baby or a young child or whatever, right? Again, I don't have a whole ton of context as far as how they're asking this question, but I've never, the process can be quicker in those cases because they don't go away, right? If your dog is living in the house with that child or that person or whatever it may be, they're going to more quickly develop the relationship, but you still have to understand that no matter where the dog's at on the spectrum, that just determines how much time it's going to take. If they're over here and they're really, really bad, right, then they have to go all the way from here to like, I'm just neutral, to then I have a relationship, where if they just start neutral, it's going to be less time, right? So, that's question number 1.
That was a good one, though.
Thoughts on that, Josh?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's just not forcing it, and just like realizing that your dog may not just overnight want to be your baby's best friend.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, it's such, and I think people think, oh, look, this is a tiny human. You should know this. But a baby looks nothing like you.
Nothing.
It's like this little schlub.
Things.
This, I don't know. And it crawls around, and it just acts totally different from you. So it's just something new. And I don't know.
Okay. All right. Question number 1 done. So we're moving on here. Next question. This is a long ass one here. I haven't even read it yet. So it's got parts though. I see part 1, part 2.
Ooh.
All right. So this question is from Ellie Beltran. Hi, I have another question / topic I would love for you to talk on your podcast. I'm sure I will have lots more to come, as I love hearing your perspective on these things. I'm loving the podcast, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I've been a vet tech at the same small animal clinic for 3 years now. I have many issues with the way we are taught to restrain dogs, etc., but I would like to focus on nail trims. Many dogs come in already fearful of nail trims, and I unfortunately witness coworkers using lots of restraint, often involving multiple people and sometimes pinning the dog on its side, and it makes the dog more aversive and difficult to handle each time it comes back to our office. I used one of your nail trim videos on my own pity and was able to trim all of his nails within the first 5 to 10 minute session, and it has only gotten better each time. I have extended your technique to some of our dog patients that come in for pedicures with great success. A few clients even specifically requested me. Sorry for the long message. Feel free to paraphrase. Basically, I'm specifically requested because supposedly no one else is able to do pedicures on these types of dogs. I have some pushback from some of the vets I work with. They will give me a disapproving look or tell me to let go of the foot as soon as the dog starts to throw a little fit, which, as you know, sets back the entire process. At this point, I will generally only use your nail technique if there's an empty exam room available for me to be alone with the dog. Do you have any advice for helping vets understand and come around to this nail trim technique? Alternative ways to restrain in general at the vet clinic. Whew. This is a loaded one. That's part one. Yeah. She also sent me a video. I don't know what this video is, but we'll probably watch it here in a minute.
Should we just go through part one first?
Yeah, part two is basically the video and asking my opinion on it. Okay. So let's talk. This is a loaded question here, right?
This is a good one though. This is like a longtime supporter kind of coming out to ask you.
So first off, I'm very happy that you've found success in using the technique, right? And here's the thing. So the hard situation you're in right now is the fact that you're working for a vet, right? Now, I am not here to bash vets. I'm not here to say all vets are bad because obviously they're medical professionals. I go to them when I have medical related issues with my dog, right? Because I don't know anything about that kind of stuff. My problem with a lot of vets is that a lot of vets unfortunately put themselves in a position where they think they're dog trainers, right? They want to be giving training advice. They want to think that they know how to work through certain behavioral issues that they frankly have no understanding of the deeper understanding of why, right? Because that's the important thing with any sort of training is you need to be able to look at anything that you're doing, right? From a training standpoint or a behavioral standpoint, and you need to be able to ask the question, why am I doing this? And why is this going to work or help, right? And a lot of that comes down to understanding the learning theory behind the things that you're doing. A lot of that comes down to understanding the techniques that you're implementing on a deep level, having had success of doing that multiple times. And the problem is a lot of vets look at things black and white of either we're just doing positive only training because vet behaviorists say that it's the correct way to do it and anything else is wrong, but that doesn't understand the why, right? Or they go into it with the expectation of if what I'm doing isn't working, my baseline knowledge of dog training, then it's a behavioral issue. So we're going to medicate the dog, right? Or sorry, I should say it's a medical neurological issue. We're going to medicate the dog, right? So here's the thing. So the fact that they're giving you these looks, and we're going to break down the why behind why my method works here in a minute, just so that I could explain very clearly why it works better than what they're currently doing. The big thing you need to keep in mind here is that the restraint is happening either way, right? I was literally just told that in this message here that sometimes takes multiple vet technicians. They're pinning the dog on the side. They're doing all of these things. And I've seen it before. I've seen it in grooming salons. I've seen it with people that, are trying to do nails, like clients and stuff like that have no clue how to do it. When I first got my very first dog, I remember Vera, when we tried to do her nails the very first time we got her, same deal. It was a two-person job. One person is basically bear hugging her. Other person's got the clippers and is trying to do it, right? And here's the thing. You're correct. It does make things worse because what's happening is the dog is predicting a battle every time they go into it. And a lot of times the people that are doing the restraining, I've seen this in vet clinics a lot, the people that are doing the restraining are getting emotionally charged themselves. So it's just like we're feeding into emotions and we're restraining the dog and we're fighting the entire time and the dog's never giving into that fight and we're clipping the nails while the dog's fighting. And we're increasing the risk that we're going to quick the dog because the dog's moving around so much at that point, right? So that's going to make it even worse at that point. And, the problem here is that you're doing something different, right? You're trying something different and they're seeing in the back of their head that it's working, right? They're seeing the people come in and say, hey, I want her to do my dog's nails because it worked, right? She did a good job with it, et cetera, right? And the problem is I think a lot of people have a little bit of an ego to things when it comes to this kind of stuff. They see that and they see, hey, my method is working better than yours, but it shouldn't be. My method is the best. It's scientific, right? It's what the vet behaviorist told me to do, whatever, right? When they see that start happening, they immediately have problems with that and they want to essentially tell you, you got to stop doing it, right? So the problem is you're in a position right now where, I don't know what your level of authority at this vet clinic is, but like if they ultimately say, no, you can't do this, like you can't really do anything about it at that point. But I think a lot of it comes down to the ego in this point of view, and that's the reason why they don't like it. So how do you get them to be okay with it? I don't really know if there's a good answer to that. I don't know if you could really give them the, hey, this is how we do things, and this is why it needs to be done this way, and this is why it's working, and et cetera, and they're just going to be like, oh, that makes sense. I get it, right? So not a good answer to that, right? I think you're kind of stuck in a hard spot with that one. But what I will do here is I will outline why that procedure works, right? So let me get my little pencil and paper out here. Start jotting down some notes. How's the video looking, Josh?
It's looking great. Oh. I like this. This is a great one, dude. I'm used to having guests, so I'm constantly losing my breath. So that's why I was like, ooh, he's checking the video. Let me get a little oxygen in myself real quick. Well, and man, these two questions are
they're loaded. I want to make sure I get all the deets.
Yeah, these are heated. I like it.
All right, so let's break this down here. So my way of trimming dogs' nails here, and I'm going to try to outline this to the best I can, right? So one of the biggest mistakes I see people make when they see a dog that has issues with having their nails trimmed, right, is they'll come in and they'll tell me for the last year, whatever, I've been touching my dog's paws, and when I see him lounging on the couch, I'll go over and I'll rub him and give him a treat, and I'll touch his little nails and this and that. And they think that that's going to get them or get the dog more acclimated to touching their paws, right?
Yeah.
Let me first start off by saying that will never, ever do anything. Never. Because what is the issue here? The issue is not touching the paws, right? No. The issue is the dog not understanding how to deal with restraint, right? So touching the paw doesn't do anything. Holding and restraining the paw is where we see dogs freak out, right? And that's because 9 out of 10 times, any sort of restraint the dog feels, they learn they could fight and they can get away with it. Let's break down some examples of that. Pulling on the leash. Dogs realize when they feel restraint, if they pull into it, it gets them where they want to go still, right? Grooming, right? When we try to brush the dog will try to run away. They'll thrash. They'll freak out. They'll be able to get away. Doing dog's nails, the best example of it. We go to hold the paw. We go to restrain it. The second the dog starts fighting and flailing, we let go and we stop, right? At the vet, we fight or we grab the dog to try to hold him, right? The dog thrashes, growls, does this, does that. The vet stops, or they bring somebody else in to try to restrain the dog more, and then they just do it while the dog is fighting. So the first step here, before we even think about doing the dog's nails or pulling out the tool or anything, is we have to get the dog accustomed to being restrained and start reinforcing that not fighting is actually what works in this case. And you could do this with or without food. I tend to do it without because I think that grooming related things, handling related things are just givens and ways of life the dog has to be okay with, right? So step number 1, what I want everybody to do with their dog. I'm talking to the world right now, Josh. This is going to be a good one. This is how you do your dog's nails the David the Dog Trainer way.
Okay.
I'm going to come out with a book, The David the Dog Trainer Way. The Good Dog Way. The Caesar Way. Everybody's got a goddamn way.
Yeah.
I got one now, too. This is the David the Dog Trainer way. All right. So I want everybody to put your dog on a leash. Attach it to a collar the dog cannot slip out of. Don't do a prong collar. It doesn't need to be a prong collar with this. Don't do a martingale or a slip collar will be more than enough, right? Get you a nice little chair, something comfortable with some legs.
Okay.
Take your leash. Put your leash handle under one of the legs. What that does is that immediately puts you in a position where the dog will not be able to run away from you, right? Boom, eliminating some of the fight, right? Second thing I want you to do, get your Dremel. I prefer a Dremel. If you want to do clippers, you can, but I prefer a Dremel. Do the Dremel. Throw the nail clippers away. Get a Dremel. Get a Dremel. Clippers got to go.
Yeah.
They got to go.
Get them out of here.
Get them out of here. Clippers are not great. Okay, so it is so unbelievably easy to cut your dog's nail too short with the clippers and then have them bleed all over your house and then to make the process worse the next time. It's so easy to do that. I've done it numerous times when I first started clipping nails. I've done it to my own dogs. The Dremel is virtually impossible to do that with, so just get yourself a Dremel. All right, so leash handle under the leg. Sit there, get yourself comfortable. Next thing I want you to do, grab one of your dog's paws, right? 2 hands, grab it. Hold on nice and tight because your dog, especially if it's a big dog. I've done this with some very large dogs before, and it tests your strength. Let me tell you. Grab the paw. You're going to hold the paw at your center of gravity right by your belly button, and you're just going to hold on tight. And what's going to happen is the dog is probably going to pull away. They'll start flailing around. They'll be a huge drama queen because they're typically used to that working. Some dogs are easy with this, right? And here's what you're going to do. You're going to hold it. You're not going to let go no matter what. And the second that you feel the dog stop fighting, you're going to loosen up. That doesn't mean let go. You still want to hold on tight, but you want to loosen up and you want to give way to the pressure as the dog does. This is the same shit as teaching leash pressure. Pressure and release, right? You're holding pressure, the dog fights, applying tension, and they learn that as they loosen up, we actively loosen up, right? So they learn how to give way to restraint, right? Do that with every single one of your dog's paws until it's nice and smooth. If you want to add a reward in, like I said, you're more than welcome to. I don't typically do it, but it's not going to hurt anything. So again, looking at the camera right here. Hold the paw. Dog's fighting. Keep holding. Dog loosens up. We loosen up. Good. Reward. Grab the next paw. Hold tight. Dog fights. Dog stops fighting. We loosen up. Good. Reward. Repeat that as many times as you want. And listen, this process, you want to do it until the dog is very, very good with it, right? Step number 1. Teaching the dog how to give way to restraint. That's the key of this step. That is the goal of this step, right? Step 2, you're going to do the same exact process with the Dremel turned on and preferably in your hand. Okay. The reason why this step is important, even though it's virtually the same exact thing as step number 1, is because we have a lot of dogs that will develop an aversion to the tool itself, right? So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we're working through any fight or any flight in the dog as a result of the aversion to the tool. In the Dremel's case, the noise in itself can be an aversion to the dog, right? This one can be a little bit harder. Assuming the dog is better with the restraint, we want to try to do it with one hand and one hand. So this pen, say this is my Dremel. Excuse me. Grab paw, turn Dremel on. Dog's fighting. Wait till they give way. Good. Reward. Next paw, Dremel on. Dog stops fighting. Good. Reward. Right? Do that a bunch of times. Do that until the dog is smooth with it. Again, we're teaching pressure and release. We're making sure that the dog is first good with having their paw restraint. Second, we're making sure that the dog is good with the tool. Now, if at any point the dog fights too hard and you accidentally slip and let go, it's no big deal. That's why we have the leash attached to the chair so the dog can't really get away still, and it doesn't really reinforce it too much. Just jump right back into it if you do it, right? And here's the thing. I can't emphasize enough with some dogs, especially dogs that are really, really bad with this, they are going to totally flip their shit when you go to start this the first time. I'm telling you, it's normal, and if you follow this procedure, you'll get over it very, very quickly with them. If you give way to it and you look at, oh my God, my dog's in distress, I can't do this right now, you're going to reinforce the state of mind because that's what's happened this entire time, right?
Yeah.
Step number 3. Hang on. So hold paw with tool on. All right.
It's the biggest problem too. People just give in so easy.
So easily. Okay. Step number 3. Now, step number 3 sometimes can be skipped here, but I like doing this one as a little bit of kind of a prerequisite. All right.
Okay.
So step number 3 is we pretend to Dremel the dog's nails to get them used to the sensation of the vibration from the Dremel, right?
Okay.
If you're using clippers, you don't really need to do this one. But again, get the clippers out of here. We don't want them. Get them out of here. All right. So step number 3, grab paw. Wait till restraint stops. Turn Dremel on. Flip Dremel over so that the actual grinding bit you're not using. Take back side of Dremel, touch nail, touch nail, touch nail, touch nail. Good. Reward. Right? So what we're doing here next is we're getting the dog used to that sensation on their paw, because that's another trigger that can easily flip them over the edge here.
Yeah.
Right? Again, you don't necessarily have to do it. I tend to skip this step a lot just because I know I could work through it with the actual grinder. But I think for some people, if we're looking at dogs that are really bad and you're doing this at home, I think for some people, you could spend, let's say, really, you just have like kind of 1/2 more steps, 4 or 5. Let's say you spent 1 week on each step of this, right? You are going to be able to work through this at such a better pace with your dog that it's going to be so much less of an issue in the long run, right? And you can take your time with it, where again, I choose to just kind of work through it right away because I know I can fight that fight with the dog and win it at that point, right?
Yeah.
So step number 4, actually grinding the nails. Now, there's some technique to this that obviously you need to know, obviously. But you would actually be doing the process of grinding the nails down. Now, here's a quick little technique as far as how this will look. I'm looking at the camera again here. Here we go.
Okay.
All right. So here's your Dremel. Let's say this pen tip is your grinding bit that's spinning, right? Here's your dog's paw, right? A lot of people will try to do this. They'll try to grind around and do all this stuff and make it look all pretty and stuff like that. Don't worry about any of that. If this is your dog's nail, right, and this is your Dremel, what you want to do is you want to have it at a 90-degree angle, flat like this. So, like this. And you want to go straight onto it. Don't turn it or anything. Just go straight on, grind straight, and you're flattening the tip is what you're trying to do, right? So you're going to flat, flat, flat. Once you finish all of that, if you want to, you can kind of round the edges. So you can go zoop, zoop. That's it. Don't try to do anything else crazy with it. And here's the thing. If you're working on this for a whole week or 2 weeks or something like that, usually what I recommend is just dock the tips. Don't even try to actually grind the nail down. Just continue getting the dog used to the sensation of like grind, 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 grind. Because the more positive experiences you have and the more success you have with this, the better it will go, right? So the key with all of this here is the restraint of the paw and getting the dog used to that. The reason why it works is because we're fighting the fight and we're doing the restraint under the assumption that we're teaching the dog how to avoid the fight. Right? That's the reason why it works, and that's the reason why everything else works past that, because it all builds on that, where we're just teaching the dog how to handle restraint in an appropriate way with additional stressors or distractions going on, right?
Yeah.
One other tip, when you're grinding the nail, if you try to do it without any sort of kind of support, it's going to flop around like crazy when you're trying to grind it. So usually what I do is I'll take my thumb, and if this is the nail, I'll rest my thumb on the back side of it right there so that when I grind, I could push against it like that, and the nail's not flopping around everywhere, so you get a nice clean grind. Then I let go, next one. Then I let go, next one. Right? So that's the process. I mean, it's a simple approach. Right? There's nothing complicated with it. It's very, very simple, as long as you follow these steps appropriately and take your time with each one of them. And I've seen some really, 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 really challenging dogs work through this process very, very quickly. Cliff, remember Cliff? Remember how bad that dog is first nails? Yeah. This was a proud moment for me right here. So Cliff, for the last year, basically, has been, I can only do his nails because he throws such a little hissy fit over it. He's just like such a little drama queen. Screams, flails, will like defecate like every time you do them and stuff just because he's scared and whatever. Yeah. The other day was the first time that somebody else, so Sarah, did his nails 100% herself. Wow. I didn't even know what was happening. I was upstairs. I think I was doing a lesson, and she came up and she was just like, "Oh yeah, I did Cliff's nails. You don't have to do them today." And I was like you did a lot. I was like, I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear him making noises. Like there was no scene or no production. So she was able to get him done. So that was really awesome. But any of these dogs can work through this kind of stuff. The only things you need to keep in mind is if you have any sort of bite risk dog, you want to take your time with that. You want to make sure you're using a muzzle if needed. You know, there are some dogs that you will need to apply corrections for certain things. So 90% of the dogs, when we go to do the nails, it's a flight response that we're dealing with. The dog is trying to get away or run away, right? Or just scared or whatever it may be. Yep. There are some dogs that will act out aggressively and they will fight as opposed to flight. And for some of those dogs, you have to correct for some of that stuff, right? So we have some training established first. If the dog is severely trying to bite at our hand or bite at the Dremel or whatever it may be, sometimes you have to inhibit that response first before you go to start this process. But those dogs are much fewer and further in between where you don't have to worry about that quite as much, right? So that's kind of my process of working through this. I mean, like I said, it's very straightforward. You just have to take your time with the process. You know, like I said, going back to your question here, the disapproving looks, the vet's not liking it, this, that. Again, I think all of that is an ego issue, and there's only so much you could do about it. The best thing you could do is continue to build a reputation, right? And if they at least allow you to do it and just disapprove of it, keep doing a good job with it, right? Keep showing that it's working. And at some point, they're going to have to... I don't think anybody can be so egotistical that if they really realize that your method is working so much better than every single other dog's that they're going to be like, no, we can't do that, right?
Yeah.
So keep doing it and don't try to force it on them, right? And also don't try to tell them why what they're doing is wrong, because that could tap into that ego a little bit. People don't like that. Just continue showing that what you're doing is working, right? And they should come around to it eventually, right? Did I outline that? Do you have any questions on that?
No, I think you did a great job on that one.
All right. So part 2 of the question, I was explaining your nail trim technique to one of the vets at the clinic, and she completely disagreed with it. She said she recommends this Sophia Yin technique to any client who asks for advice on nail trims. I try to have an open mind, but this video kind of smells of BS to me. Have you ever tried this different technique or know of any trainers who successfully use it? Well, I don't know this, but the fact that it already says Dr. Sophia Yin leads me to believe that it's probably bullshit because it's probably a vet behaviorist. All right, let's watch it here. See what we got. Okay, hang on. All right, aggressive for toenail trim. It says, produced by Sophia Yin, DVM, Ask Dr. Yin, from Low Stress Handling, Restraint and Behavior Modification book and DVD.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It has
so here's the thing.
4.75 on...
Oh, do you have it?
Yeah, I'm looking up the book right now.
Okay. So here's the thing. So first thoughts already here. So there is a big movement going on in vet clinics right now called, I believe, fear-free vet care. So fear-free vet care. I don't know that much about it. So I'll do a little bit of research on it for the next podcast. But my understanding is that they're trying to figure out ways where they don't stress the dog out as much, and they essentially work the dog through these fears in a non-contact sort of way, right? Now, that's great in theory and all, but again, we've already broken down the issue with the nail trims here. So let's see what we got here. Video is starting. All right, so 5, counter conditioning to grooming, refined version.
This dog doesn't like having his toenails trimmed.
So first off, already, restraint.
Yep.
Hold. So anybody that says, so you're already telling me this is a stress-free way of doing this process, but we're already seeing that the dog is being restrained.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll take a few minutes to counter condition him. First, I give him treats without handling him in order to change his emotional state. Now that he's happy, we can start the desensitization and counter conditioning.
Is he happy though?
Then you're just going to feel his feet while I'm giving treats. Okay. So go ahead. The assistant should wait until the dog's occupied with eating before she starts handling, and then stop handling right before the dog finishes the treat. This way, the dog's attention is focused on the food the entire time he's being handled, which lessens the likelihood.
So just
that he
touching
might
paws,
bite
not
the
restraining. So I bet you what's going to happen here. Let me take a guess here. And I could be completely wrong by this. I bet you what's going to happen. This is going to be very similar to, so another common way we'll see people trim nails, which listen, if it works, great, right? The problem is distracting a dog is very different from teaching them how to actually handle the emotions behind this, right?
Yeah.
What I think is going to happen here is she's going to sit there and pump this dog full of treats, and that they're going to go to clip the nails with ever actually really holding on to the paw or restraining the paw, right? And if that's the case, we'll discuss why I think that is inappropriate.
That our timing is off the first several times, and then we get our teamwork down better. Our goal is to always keep the handling at the right level, so
Same
the dog
deal.
doesn't even seem to notice that he's being
Touching the
handled.
paw, feeding treats, just distracting the dog from touching the paw. Still completely
After repeating
restraining
one
the
step
dog
a
by the
number of
collar right
times,
now.
we move to the next step. In this case, the next
Tapping
step
the
is that
feet
my
with the
assistant
clippers.
taps his foot with the clippers.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead. Let's see what it looks like. In between handling bouts, wait long enough so the dog can understand that handling equals treats and no handling equals no treats. He should be looking expectantly at you for more treats.
Placing
the assistant
clippers
now
over
puts
the nail.
clippers over the nail, but doesn't clip. Stop. Yeah.
Now, I want to break down here real quick. They're doing the exact same steps that I just outlined.
Yeah.
So first, touching the paw. In my case, I did holding the paw to actually deal with the problem, right? Hold paw with the tool on. Second thing they did was touching the paw with the nail clippers. Obviously, they're not using a Dremel right now, which is virtually the same thing. So what they're doing is they're then going from just touching of the paws to the aversion to the tool touching the paws. Third step here is pretending to clip the nails. Third step here, Dremel with vibration, pretending to Dremel the nails.
Yep.
And then they're going to clip.
Okay. So you feel like you could. And finally,
Now
she
she
clips
clips
his
them.
nails while he's getting a treat.
Very fun.
Yeah.
Same deal. Restraining the dog
This
still.
dog doesn't even
Pumping
seem
the
to
dog
notice.
full of treats.
He's having a good experience, so on the next visit, he'll be even better.
That's about it.
This entire counter conditioning and toenail trim process has only taken 4 minutes.
Okay. So here's the thing. So first off, let's outline the fact that it's literally the same fucking process is what I do.
Yeah.
Right? Now, this goes back to one topic here, though. Well, two things, right? One, you have to have a highly food motivated dog to even consider doing something like that.
Yeah.
Right? Which is fine, right? Like, again, we talked about utilizing treats and stuff. The problem is here, they're using the treats as a bribe, not as a reward.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
If that hand wasn't pumped full of rewards right there, the dog would still be freaking out. Now, listen, if it gets you to the point where you can cut your dog's nails and you have an effective way to do it, that's all that matters. The problem is it doesn't work through the issue of this dog's I would bet you anything this dog has aggression issues outside of nail trimming because its issue is being handled, its issue is being restrained, and its issue is having things done to it that it doesn't like. Right? Yep. You can counter condition all day long, but once the problem is you're never going to shift things. And like we just talked about, get the dog into the state of mind of, I'm never going to be scared. I'm never going to be fearful of things. I'm never going to be this. What happens when one day you don't have treats and you need to be able to do that, and then the dog gets nervous or spooked by whatever it is that you're doing, and since you've never worked through the root of the problem, which is coaching the dog through how to handle stressors and how to handle these outside fears and stuff like that, they start aggressing again, right? You can't do anything about it, right? So that's the reason why I work through things my way and why you'll see things be better and better and better each time is because we don't have the perfect world situation of just being able to utilize food all the time and to spend 9 years doing this and to do this and to avoid the stressors forever and stuff. We need to head on work through the problem of this stuff. So I'm not saying this video is BS because the process, like I said, is broken down in a clear way here. The problem is they haven't fixed anything yet because all they're doing is distracting the dog so that they can do the nails. The dog isn't even really aware of the fact of what's being done to him because he's too distracted by the fact that food is being pumped into my mouth right now, right? So it's a fine line you have to play on where I want to change the dog's perception of things. Yeah. I want to change their perception of things, obviously, right? I want to get them to a point where they have a positive association with these things being done, but I don't want to do it in a way where I'm bribing the dog in order to do it, right? I want to teach them how to handle the stress first, which is the issue of the problem. And then from there, I want to change their perception over time of these different things. So that's the hard conversation when you have dogs that are having, aggression related issues, or you're trying to counter condition things, or you're talking like how much food do we use versus how much correction do we use with certain things. You got to figure out the balance with a lot of that. Now, another thing to keep in mind is when they were first showing the aggressive responses with this dog, they were literally bear hugging the dog in her lap, right? Now, anytime you put the dog in a position where fight or flight, flight is not an option, they can't get away and they're already being restrained, they're going to be more likely to aggress, which is why I start with the dog in a neutral position on the floors, because a lot of times that in itself will help work through the problem as well, right? They don't feel as restrained by things. I'm only restraining one paw as opposed to restraining the entire body, so they can kind of get away and pull back and create some space and stuff and not have as much of a response to it from that as well. So this is a hard one. Like I said, there's, this, we're going to have to do a whole podcast at some point on the conversation of like positive only and like a lot of the behaviorist methods of counter conditioning and stuff like that versus the way that we train. because here's the thing, everybody knows, like, we love training with food. I love creating good associations with things. I love reinforcing things. I love rewarding the dog for things and stuff. But I'm aware that the world that we live in is not conducive to just doing that, right? You have to teach the dog how to deal with environmental stressors as well. So, great question, though.
Yeah. Yeah, her like introduction is talking about, she starts out as my caveman days.
My caveman days.
Yeah, before all the positivity came in.
Yeah.
It's literally,
is that the book?
Yeah, the book.
What's the description of the book?
Let me see. First, it's handling, restraint, and behavior modification of dogs and cats. Low stress techniques for developing patients who love their visits. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my caveman days. From high school through my first years as a veterinarian, the Milan-like methods of forcing pets to bend to my will so that I could be the boss and teach them to behave guided my interactions with unruly animals in the veterinary hospital. I took this approach because it was what I had been taught by different trainers starting 20 years ago. So, yeah, and she just goes into why.
The problem is these vets are not they're not dog trainers.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I know. She even said trainer, you know.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like I said, we'll do a whole podcast on that in the future. It's such a complex topic because I'm with them, right? I don't want to have that like tough guy approach all the time, or that Bridget referred to as like the alpha male personality.
Yeah.
Whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's not the goal with any of this kind of stuff. But we have to understand that a lot of the examples that are used in the veterinarian world I remember being told one time, you know, if cheetahs can, you know, we can get cheetahs to wait for their food, you know, without an e-collar or this or that, then we can teach dogs how to behave without them and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, first off, that's like the highest value reinforcer ever for them. So if they figure out that, you know, what they need to do to get that's the only way they're going to get it, then of course. But I would love to see these people do those things, not behind barricades and not in a controlled environment and all that stuff. You know, go out in the wild and try to train your cheetah how to do that and see how it works out for you.
Yeah,
you know?
Not very well.
So I don't know. There's too much to that for sure. So
do you feel like there's a I don't know, not maybe like an animosity between the training world and veterinary world?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like that's why there's so like 90% of our haters in the greater Cleveland area are the veterinarians. Like there are a lot of veterinarians out there that do not like what we do. I used to tell this story a lot. I had there was this dog Wicklow that did a board and train with us 3.5 years ago, something like that, when we first opened our Cleveland location. And I remember Wicklow was a little Arendale. He went to Rainbow Veterinarian Care out on the east side, right around the corner from South Euclid facility.
Okay.
And, you know, they had just signed up for the board and train. They were really excited. And the wife took Wicklow to the vet. This was like maybe 4 weeks before he was going to start. He had to get some shots and stuff. She took him there and she was all excited and told the vet, you know, yeah, we just signed Wicklow up for training. He's going to be starting next month. You know, we're so pumped for this, whatever, you know. The vet legitimately started screaming at her over it, telling her how she was being irresponsible, telling her how she was going to send him somewhere that we were going to abuse him, just saying all of this ridiculous shit. And again, legitimately yelling at her over it to the point where she left the vet office in tears. And I got a phone call then about 20 minutes later from her husband. And I remember him calling, and I obviously didn't know what had happened at this point. And he was just like, hey, do you know Rainbow Veterinarian Clinic? And I was just like, I mean, yeah. Obviously, we knew they didn't really like us a whole lot over there. But we knew who they were, whatever, yeah. I was like, yeah, I mean, whatever. And he's just like, can you explain to me why my wife just left there crying because she told them that she was going to be sending our dog to training with you? And at that point, I'd explained to him, I was like, I'd explained the whole, like, this is why vets and trainers hate each other so much. And frankly, I don't understand why any business or professional, right? Somebody that's a doctor, right? I don't understand why anybody can feel like it's their responsibility to be so berating and rude to somebody over a choice that they made like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like like, first off, we didn't ask for your opinion on it, right? So stay in your lane. Second off, you're not a trainer, so you don't know anything about this. Third off, like, where's your, like, you're literally telling somebody that they're abusing their dog by doing that, right? Do you understand how harsh of a statement that is to tell somebody?
That's a bold statement.
That's so insane, right? But that stuff happens all the time. We have plenty of clients that once they start training with us, they go to whoever their regular vet is, and they have to switch vets because they'll bring their dog in on a prong collar or on an e-collar or whatever it is. And this is the most passive aggressive one that I see all the time. Is they'll give the dog to the vet, they'll take the dog into the back, and then they'll bring the dog back out, and they'll have taken all the collars off and then just give them the collars, because they don't like that the dog has the e-collar on in those cases. It's like, oh, okay, cool. You took all those other collars off, but my dog's regular collar and tags and stuff are still on. So obviously you didn't need to take the collars off. You just chose to take them off because you're trying to be passive aggressive because you don't like them. Right?
Exactly.
So we'll see stuff like that all the time. We'll see same deal, just comment after comment of like, you guys shouldn't be doing this. There's better ways to train the dogs. There's more humane ways to train the dog. Blah, blah, blah. Just giving their 2 cents all the time, right? Where, again, like, I'm not a medical professional. I am not going to be giving, and I even say it all the time. People will ask me medical questions about their dog, and I always tell them, I was like, I don't know. That's not my specialty. That's not what I do. Take your dog to the vet for that. So I don't understand why they think that it's their responsibility to be able to do that as well.
Yeah. It's like they don't know how dogs react. Like, they don't know the whole life of the dog or why it needs that train. I don't know.
Yeah. And I feel bad because we'll have clients that also like ask me, like, say their dog is like horrible at the vet, right? For whatever reason. They'll be like, hey, can you come with me to my next vet appointment? And I've done it a couple of times for dogs that are like horrendously bad, right? But like 9 out of 10 times I say no because I'm not trying to step on their toes, right? They have their ways of doing it, and I can give you better ways to handle your dog. But I always say once the dog is handed off to the vet, it's their responsibility to do their thing, right? And if you don't like the way that they're doing it, then you can find somebody else that's more open to doing things your way, right?
Exactly.
I know with my vet that I take my dogs to, I have a great relationship with them, Tremont Animal Clinic. I adore them because they're open to, they know that I know what my dogs need, right? And I've had other clients that take their dogs there before that. They know what their dog needs. So because of that, there's not any great issues or anything. They'll adjust things as needed. They allow me to handle my dogs as opposed to, having the techs and stuff like that do them there and all that kind of stuff. Because they know what that individual dog needs, right? But aside from that, if you take your dog somewhere, it's their responsibility to kind of handle those types of things. So you got to figure out who you trust the most with that.
That's awesome.
So crazy.
Yeah. I feel like there's there's the 3 sections of like the dog world, there's the vets, there's the trainers, there's the kennels, like the pounds and rescues. And I feel like it's almost all 3 are on different pages at all times. It seems like
you're 100% correct because again, anybody that works with animals likes to think that they have a better understanding of the animals than they actually do, right? And I'm not saying that in a blaming way. I don't know much about the rescue world, right? I don't know much about the vet world, right? But the problem is, I think a lot of people, and it's the same with clients, right? Like when you have a dog, it's kind of like you have that responsibility of, I should know how to train this dog, right? I should know what to do to make this dog better. But the problem is they don't have the experience in having done it repeatedly, where that's what we do. That's what we specialize in, right? So no different than I'm no expert in rehoming dogs or, caring for them or helping to rehabilitate them from a medical standpoint of, when a rescue gets in an emaciated dog and they need to go through the process of like putting muscle and fat on the dog and like getting them up to like healthy speed and stuff, where vets know how to work through surgical procedures and medications and things like that, I don't know those types of things because I don't do those things every day.
Yeah.
So it's hard. Like I said, it's a very, very polarized pet world.
It really is. Yeah.
So tough stuff here. So that's going to lead us into last topic here that we're going to wrap up on here. I've had a lot of clients ask me lately, what are some things that I can do to prep my dog for training? Right? What are some things that I can do to get my dog to a place where, they're going to, they're going to be able to take the training process much easier. And the number one thing that I see on this list is developing the dog's food drive. I would say that 90% of dogs that come in either have zero food drive, right? Which means that they don't care about the treats. They don't care about their own food. They're usually free fed at home. Or they have completely inadequate food drive to be able to work through things. So yeah, maybe when you go grab the treat box out of the pantry, the dog gets a little excited and is like, hey, I'm just going to get a little freebie right now or something. But they don't care enough about that food drive to work through a lot of those kind of day-to-day basic stressors that are going to be involved in the training process. And I always say, obviously, we train plenty of dogs without food, right? We have plenty of dogs that come in that we're on a time crunch with, or, they just the owners don't care enough about that or whatever it may be. And we still get the job done and we're still able to train it. But that process just goes so much smoother when you have some motivation, right? We talked about the nail trim process. We saw how that one dog was able to overcome some of those stressors just using food, which is great, right? But in order to do that, we have to have the conversation of making sure that we're developing that food drive first with dogs if we want to start to counter condition things or to teach more complex behaviors or things like that, right? So I'm going to give people some tips here, the David the Dog Trainer way, on how to develop food drive with your dog. We're going to be talking about developing food drive real quick here. Man, I was just telling Josh, anytime I get back from vacation, I feel like it takes me like at least 2 hours of discussing dog training related things before all of the juices are just flowed back into my noodle.
And here we are.
I feel as we're going through this conversation, I feel like it's just like my brain's just like going from being a dried up sponge to just like to like a plump little, I don't know, shooting out all the information the way that it needs to be going.
Plump brain.
I'm catching up with things here. So bear with me, people. All right, so building food drive here. So again, one of the most important things you could do before the training process, it just helps with everything. Again, just like positive only trainers and like people in vet clinics and stuff like that like to only utilize positive reinforcement or negative punishment, which is removing food to discourage a behavior. So nothing aversive, essentially, like that, right? I also think that the other end of the spectrum of just using negative reinforcement or positive punishment is also not the greatest, because you're leaving out so much communication that you could be giving the dog, right?
Yeah.
And listen, anytime we have the ability to tell the dog both yes and no at the same time in a way that the dog really understands, the process is going to be better, right?
Yeah.
So build your dog's food drive so that we can do that more effectively, and so that they can learn more clearly and they can have a better understanding of things. We can decrease stress and we can make it more efficient in the long run. So here's some tips on doing it. So tip number 1, before you start training, immediately when you sign up for your training program or when you start deciding to consider your training program, I want you to take all the treats that are in your pantry and I want you to throw them away. Or give them to a friend if you don't want to,
There we go.
Get rid of things. You don't want to just throw them away, right? But you got to throw the snacks away. So a couple reasons. One, if you're just freely giving out stuff like that all the time, or just in your house when your dog goes pee or something when they're 7 years old, it's like you're immediately decreasing the value of anything else that you're giving your dog, which their food is what we want them to be valuable for.
Yeah.
Because when we do the training process, we use the dog's primarily daily food, because it's cheaper, it's better for them. We can measure it in. We know we aren't overfeeding the dog at all. And since we use a ton of it, there's a lot of kibble that we feed our dog. So we have more rewards we can give. A lot of these treats and stuff, people don't realize how many calories are in them. So we looked it up the other day. I was asking a client, we're talking about developing food drive and stuff. And I asked the client, I was like, well, what extra stuff do you give the dog? They're like, literally nothing except, one of those greenies every night, right? And it was one of those jumbo greenies that they sold. And we looked it up online. That jumbo greenie had 400 calories in it.
Wow.
For a dog, that is insane amount of extra calories to be feeding them, right?
Wow.
Other things to factor in, obviously, the calories in all of the additional things you're giving, or just the kibble, right? Each bag of food has a different calories per cup to it as well. And this is something that I've done a lot of research on in the past to make sure that I know when different clients are coming in with different foods about how much that should be sitting at, So eliminate all the snacks. In addition to that, eliminate all the extra fluff that you give them. A lot of people like to put all these like blueberries and like a little bit of wet food on it, and they like to boil up their chicken and do this and do that. And again, anything of higher value than that kibble you give the dog, you're decreasing the value of the actual kibble for, right?
Yeah.
I've never in my life seen a dog that was not motivated enough for their kibble. I've only seen dogs that are either overfed with kibble or given too much extra stuff, or they realize, hey, if I hold off on this, I'm going to get the good stuff later, right? I understand there's health reasons and stuff why people like giving all those things, but here's the thing. Your dog is probably going to be fine on kibble for just a little bit, and then once we finish the training process, if you really feel like adding all that stuff back in, you can, right? So eliminate all of those extra things, and we're going to go down to just a bare kibble diet, right? Second thing that you want to do here, you want to eliminate the dog's ability to free feed. So what is free feeding? Free feeding is when you're leaving food out all the time for the dog, right? You leave the bowl of food down, you fill it up, and you just leave it there all day for them to go and graze as needed. And I've heard every argument in the book for why we do this. I've heard that, my dog knows how to regulate how much they eat, which is bullshit because I don't even know how to regulate how much I eat.
Yeah. It's always those people too. You look at their dogs and they're like, are you sure? Are you really sure he knows how to regulate?
I've heard the argument of, free feeding the dog, teaches them to not just gorge anything that's in front of them. It teaches them only to eat until they're full, which again, listen, it's a dog. I want to have control over how much my dog is eating, right?
Yeah.
Here's some benefits to switching from free feeding. Biggest benefit here, digestive issues. I have plenty of clients that their dog will just gorge themselves at random times throughout the day because they don't eat all day and they know it's down all the time. And then they get hungry, then they eat a ton of it, but it's at different hours throughout the day. So the dog is shitting unpredictably.
Yeah.
Right?
All the time.
They're having digestive issues. They're needing to go at 2 a.m. You know what I mean? So you're going to get all of that on balance. You're going to have the dog on a clear schedule, right? Including puppies, because I see a lot of people fall into this trap with puppies as well, right? Other benefits to it, you're going to develop the dog's food drive immediately. Other developments to it, you're going to be able to utilize that feeding at specific times as you want to, as is going to be convenient with your schedule, right? You don't have to worry about all of the additional stuff behind it. So switching to a structured feeding time. So now we discuss, how do we do that? Okay, so first and foremost, pick up the bowl, put it away. Let's start at day one here. Day one of switching from free feeding to a structured feeding schedule here, right? Right? So what you're going to do is, now listen, people are going to fucking come at me with pitchforks and torches here for this as well. But I baseline this stuff all, right? So so if we get a dog that comes in that is, say, under 45 pounds, I'm going to guesstimate right at about under 45 pounds. For the first 2 weeks of doing this, I feed the dog 1 cup a day. Half cup in the morning, half cup in the evening, right? If the dog is over that, and here's the thing, honestly, unless the dog is like a Great Dane or a Mastiff or something that I know is going to be well over that. If it's like a 50 to 75 pound dog, I'm going to do 2 cups a day. So 1 cup in the morning, 1 cup in the evening. And that's my baseline starting place here. So under 45 pounds, give that dog half cup, put it down in the morning, give them 5 to 10 minutes. At 5 to 10 minutes, if they do not eat all of it, pick that bowl up, pour that food back in the bag, and then try again for the evening. Now, this is the key with this. This is not rollover food. So let's say the dog eats half of it in the morning. They eat a 1/4 cup, right? Do not give them 3/4 of a cup in the evening thinking that's their total daily food allowance. And this is why. A lot of these dogs, they need to balance themselves out with this, right? So if we give them food in the morning, a lot of these dogs aren't used to eating or gorging themselves until later in the evening. But the problem is if we give them all of that food then, way too much in the evening, they're not going to be hungry in the morning again, right? So be prepared for the dog to skip that first meal and not eat any of it and then only get a half cup in the evening. And then that day, they get half of their daily allowance of food because they learned that when I didn't eat what was presented in front of me, I didn't get it later, right? So what happens then is the dog is a little extra hungry in the morning. Then they eat all of it that time, right? Then it starts to balance out. Then they eat all of it in the evening. And sometimes this takes maybe 3 days, 4 days to fully balance out, but you have to stay strict with it. And you have to make adjustments as needed with it, right? So usually what I do then is I take it on a week-by-week basis. I see after that first week, did I adjust it enough where the dog's food drive is high enough, right? If I did not, if the dog is still leaving food in the bowl or whatever, then I have to cut it back a little bit more, right? So whatever it was, usually maybe I'll take a quarter cup out total from what that daily allowance would be. And then I would try it again in a week and I'd see where we are at. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for that dog to be pretty ravenous over the food without them dropping too much weight. And when I say dropping too much weight, I mean dropping past a healthy amount of weight, because a lot of these dogs need to lose a little weight anyways, right? If for whatever reason I've dropped it too much and the dog is, skin and bones and losing weight really quickly and stuff like that, all you have to do is up it a little bit, right? And as long as you make those adjustments, it's a very simple process. You just got to give the dog a little bit of time to balance out to that feeding process. Don't be nervous or scared that he seems hungry all the time, because that's the point. We want the dog to seem hungry all the time. So that when I take out that food for a training session, they're like, fuck yeah, I want that. I want to work for that. I want to figure out what I need to do to get that, right? And, that's what I'm looking for out of these dogs. My dogs, if I take food out at any time throughout the day, they get jacked up for it. They're super pumped. They know exactly what it means, and they'll basically do anything for that. And because of that, I've worked through the process in a way with their training where I don't need to use as many corrections for things, because they're more eager to do the work for me. So that's the benefit of building the food drive and getting them to a point where you could use that throughout the training. So pretty simple process, but that's my way of doing it.
I mean, it is. It's a simple concept that I feel like people think is so hard.
So hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's developing food drive. It goes a long way. I made a post the other day on my personal page, just because I haven't really posted a whole lot from it lately. Most of the posts have been from the Miracle page, and I was talking in it about a new dog I have in right now, Fritz, that I'm working with, and a lot of his training process. And Fritz had pretty good food drive when he started his training, and we made a couple adjustments to it to make it even better. And it was really cool because the video that I posted was 10 days into his training. And, we had done some e-collar training. We had done prong collar training with him and stuff like that. But the level of reliability that I have with him already at this point, from the standpoint of his recalls, his downstays, his bed stays, all of that good stuff, it's so high already because he has such good food drive. Now, here's the thing. Like I said, I've given him corrections here and there for things and stuff, but they've been very few and far between, because he has a more clear understanding of what I want him to do. So when I add in those corrections for what I don't want him to do, it's much more understood. He can retain them much quicker, and we don't have the additional fallout of after I give that correction, it takes like 20 minutes of working with him to kind of rebuild him back up into it,
Yeah.
So those are the benefits of developing that food drive. And it's like, okay, cool. You got to ask yourself at some point, because some people, like I said, I don't know what it is about the food drive conversation, but some people get really, really, really stressed out about that. They're like, oh my God, they feel like they're starving their dog, or they feel like they're being so cruel to them through it, or whatever it may be. But you got to ask yourself, it's like, okay, cool. Do I want to have my dog a little bit extra hungry throughout the day so that they're going to be able to work through some of this stuff and my training process is going to be nice and smooth? Or do I want to have to be hammering my dog over stuff all the time and using really high corrections and this and that to avoid doing that? It's like, listen, like I said, it's your choice ultimately, right?
Yeah.
Like, I prefer developing food drive because I don't think that the dog is going to have a lot of fallout and stuff from it. But some people would rather just not go through that process with their dog, and these are the internal choices that I feel like every owner has to kind of abide by with a lot of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so. I mean, I'm guilty of it, because Devin was the one. She was like, listen, Bender's a small cattle dog, but she's like,
sure,
half a cup of food in the morning, half a cup of food at night. That's it. Yeah. I'm like, are you sure? I'm like, are you sure?
It does.
More,
listen, there's some, and here's the thing, swinging back to this again, the bag of food, a lot of people like to, it's not even necessarily people's fault because they go off of the bag of food, all the treats and stuff, that's your fault. But like a lot of people will overfeed just the amount of kibble because, the bag of food just says 25 to 35 pounds should get this much, 35 to 45 pounds should get this much, et cetera, et cetera. But the problem is that doesn't factor in any additional shit, right? It doesn't factor in the age of the dog. It doesn't factor in the activity level of the dog. It doesn't factor in the breed of the dog. And all three of those individual things are going to lead to a completely different calorie intake that the dog actually needs, or how much they burn, or how fast their metabolism works, or any of that kind of stuff. In addition to that, a lot of people will go off of their dog's current weight as opposed to their dog's healthy weight they should be at, right? So if the dog is 65 pounds but should actually be 45 pounds, if you're feeding them the amount it says for 65 pounds, they're going to continue increasing in weight because they're taking in more calories than they are burning.
That's true. That's true.
So you got to factor those things in as well. And then the last thing I tell everybody is dog food companies want to sell dog food. So they are going to say higher than what it actually should be.
Yeah.
So, and then, there are certain amounts like the type of food that I feed my dogs. I feed Purina Pro Plan Sport Formula, and it's a very, very high calorie dense food, right? It's, I think, like 200 calories higher per cup than most dog foods on the market. So because of that, my dogs eat significantly less than they would if they were on another food. And sometimes, I'll fill up that bowl and it's like, it doesn't look like very much, and you give it to them and it's like, it's fine though. Like I know that it's appropriate for them, right? Because I go off of the dog. I go off of, are they increasing in weight? Are they decreasing in weight? Or are they staying consistent to where they're at? And then I make adjustments from there as I need to.
Yeah.
And even with my dogs, I'll be somewhat fluid about it throughout the year. Like in summertime, if we're doing more walks and more hikes and this and that, sometimes I'll increase that a little bit. Maybe instead of 2 cups total a day, I do 2.5 or 2.25 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like I'll fluctuate it based on if I start noticing it's like they're a lot more active, they might be dropping a little bit of weight and stuff. And kind of go from there with it. But I'm going off of their amount of food drive that they have, right? I still want that food drive to be really high while making sure that they're maintaining a healthy weight. So, so that's like the number one thing that I could see you do to help the training process just infinitely as you're working throughout the thing. So, okay, cool. Well, we're an hour and a half in. We're going to end this one a little bit early. Random podcast, couple questions, couple topics.
It was a good one.
Yeah.
Still flowed great.
Couple good questions.
It's like you never went on vacation.
We'll see. We'll see how next week goes.
Yeah.
Next week should be fun. I think I have some cool stuff lined up for the next one.
Cool stuff. I like that.
Bear with our random ones in between. Continue asking questions. At any point, if you have questions, shoot me a DM, and we will make sure we get those answered on here for y'all. But aside from that, that was the David Dog Trainer Podcast 11.
Sounds good.
Do we?
Josh Dobay Productions, website and Instagram.
Hit us up, David the Dog Trainer, Miracle Canine Training, miraclecanintraining.com. And that's a wrap.